Hopefully we're going to make this a super collaborative session today. We're going to be focused on the insights from Renu, Elizabeth, and Jamie. And my job here is to make sure that folks can ask questions. We want this to be not just us up here chatting, but a group discussion, despite being on Zoom. So if everyone can do their best to be the great salespeople and revenue leaders you are out there and raise your voices, feel free to jump into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure this is an engaging session on, again, a very timely topic: how to hit your sales goals during a downturn. We're going to be talking about kind of three main buckets here. Firstly, top of mind, making the most out of your pipeline. Every single lead and opportunity matters more than ever. Even if you're not seeing a negative impact yet, there's always more touches and more things and ways we can think about our lead conversions and opportunities. And this is a great time to take another look at that and move the needle, every week, every month, just a little bit. Secondly, something I'm really passionate about personally that's a bit less direct sales, but I think has a huge impact on sales organizations, which is positioning your product as a need to have. And everything that you talk about, how the specific words you use, how do you make sure that this is something that ends up being prioritized? Most lost deals are from no decisions, not through competitors. So that's super important. And then lastly, really tactically, managing timelines, expectations, stakeholders, all these things when budgets are tighter or budget is held further up the food chain. How do you make sure you're getting into those conversations and doing that right? So excited to dig into all three of these. To kick off, selfishly, let's start with the thing I'm most excited about, which curious to hear how people think about, adjusting positioning and making sure, again, that this is a top priority that gets done, and positioning your product and solution as a need to have. I don't know if someone wants to put up their hand, happy just to kind of select at random here, but if anyone's, passionate about this, feel free to jump in.
I can go. So definitely passionate about this because I work for Thrive. We're a behavior change technology platform. So we help, we're a B2B company. We help employers give their employees tools to be, their best version of themselves. And our mission is to end the burnout epidemic. And this is a top priority for every organization. And it's definitely a need to have. We're seeing it's a board level C-suite conversation. And so, last week we launched a well-being pledge, which basically commits, organizations are committing to their employees' mental well-being. And we got over 1,000 signers on our pledge in less than a week. And so it just shows that this is top of mind, but it's also a must-have to make sure that we're adhering to the times of the uncertainty, especially as we go into this, market, whatever these markets turn into. It's definitely a really great place to be at Thrive to help employers help their employees with their mental well-being.
Totally, yeah. I think that's a great point to start with, which is not just what's the competitive market, who else is doing this. Are we going after SMBs, mid-market, or enterprise? I think the thing that's in probably top of most decision makers' minds are what's happening today, what's happening around us, and what is that board level thing. I think one of the quotes that I love from my favorite sales trainer, Skip Miller, is how do you be a small part of a big problem, right? And that's a big problem. How do you position yourselves? Not, we do all this stuff, this is the features, and we can solve all the small thing. What's the thing that's not going to get deprioritized? And that's a great example of something in positioning yourself in that world. So that makes a lot of sense.
I can chime in on that too. I actually, so I have, I'm not sure if I'm proud of this or not, but I have a tremendous amount of experience in down markets, and it's challenges make you better. Right. I'm also in a situation, I'm the head of sales at a company called Natomi, which is an AI solution for customer success. So it's a very timely conversation. But, in terms of, what's going on right now, I'm actually kind of excited about it because I think this is when the rubber hits the road. Anybody can look good in up markets, right? So how do you go about separating yourself with your messaging, looking at your pipeline, and making sure that that you are capitalizing on this difficult time when sales cycles are slowing down, when people are losing staff members. And there's a saying that I always love. It's like challenges build character, and my reaction to that has always been, I don't want to learn any more lessons. I'm enough of a character. It's like, we don't need any more character building lessons, but it's true. And there are a number of tactics that I've used throughout my career at different various times that, maybe we can jump into a little later, but that have really helped me manage and thrive in this kind of an environment.
Awesome. Well, super excited to get some of the, sorry, Jamie, go for it, man.
No, I think two things I just heard that are really interesting. So Ross, you hit on something that goes to one of my favorite quotes, which is a yes makes money, a no saves money, and a maybe costs money. To me, I think it's up to us as sales leaders to build the right kind of culture where you can build trust with your team, where they feel comfortable putting a closed loss, something that's just a no, where then they can actually move on to where they can go win. I think where there's that challenge is when a lot of us want to think we can always win something. And then it hovers in that maybe stage. It gets pushed at the end of every quarter into another quarter. And I think right now more than ever, it's like really being thoughtful about how our processes are put in place to really make sure that we're being honest with ourselves and going to the yeses and not lingering in that maybe. And then the other thing about pipeline is like, are we being scientific about our approach? And what I mean by that is like, I'm always encouraging our team and our sales operations team to go out and do what a scientist does first, which is create a hypothesis. Be less worried about whether you're right or wrong, but rather just create the hypothesis, put together a couple of endpoints, find data that will ultimately help you determine whether your hypothesis was right or wrong. And then whether you're right or wrong, you're going to learn something, and then you iterate based on that. And I think if you're very methodical and scientific about creating that pipeline from a data perspective, and while merging that like emotional EQ about like being honest about these deals, because it's not always easy to go into a deal room and say, yeah, this is going to close loss. But if you create a great culture where people are comfortable enough to be honest, I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, I think harder than ever, because again, the leads and opportunities are more important. So it's even harder to do that. And I agree, you want to spend the calories as a team on the things you can only send so many emails and be on so many calls a day, making sure that those are the ones that you really want the team all selling against. Well, to get more tactical, because I know that folks are probably thinking about, okay, get it. These are the times, it's important, up leveling all this stuff. How do you do that? The next question for the group is, how do we drive urgency with the team on every single lead and opportunity? How do you translate? Like as leaders, you feel that ownership. That's why you've done it from being an SDR, potentially being an AE, working your way up. You've always felt that ownership of your number and the team's number. And that's why you're in these positions. How do you get that? How do you instill that kind of team mentality on such an individual sport to the company, again, in these harder times, right? That's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about and have less so personally been in that position. Curious to get this group's take on, how do you have that shared urgency and drive, especially when it's harder? And I think the wins are even better when you have a more challenging goal ahead of you and you're kind of fighting against the water. So curious of any lessons and kind of tactics that this team has action. Maybe Elizabeth, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Focus. To put on your blinders and focus and make a plan. And, I think that's like, I started out in the investment industry and then I was a 17-year stay-at-home mom. And then I relaunched a career in tech at close to 50 with no tech background. I built a territory from the ground up in the Northeast, calling on investment stockbrokers essentially. And I was trained by the number 2 institutional salesperson in the world at the time. And it was all about making a plan. So, you want to don't focus on the big picture. Don't focus about what's going on in the world, but make a plan, create a business plan. And, I like when I was building this territory, and this is back when carrying a bag was carrying a bag, it was in-person meetings, and I made sure that I had 4 meetings a day, every day, Monday through Thursday. Friday was my office day where I would do all my follow-up and all my scheduling. I was always scheduled at least 2 weeks out. So you can focus on 2 things. Focus on what you can control, the quality of your presentation and the number of people you talk to. And if you just keep doing, it's almost like, we've all, I'm like many of us, through the pandemic, was sitting around way more. Like if you want to get in shape, right, you have to create a routine.
Yeah.
Eating right and exercising.
I think the point around the plan is something that I think a lot of top sellers and leaders fall into, that is not something that's discussed a ton. And I think I found myself, I remember at Stripe, I'd be like, okay, what are the deals for this quarter? What are for next? What are the conversations? And I need to write down this crazy spreadsheet. And a lot of it too reminds me of kind of like manifesting, like, right? Like if you can't see it, if you can't write it down, how are you going to create this? If you can't even picture it, how's it going to become a reality? And I think that that's something that, well, is relatively easy, isn't something that is built into teams. And sounds like something that you probably support your team in unlocking for other folks, right? Like maybe the top, if you have a team of 10, maybe the top 2 or 3 people are doing this, right? That's usually the percentage that we see of top performers. And, either it's in their head or it's in their Salesforce in a certain way, or, on a notepad. How do you help unlock the next group of 3 or 4 or 5 people, figure that out, right?
100%. And when you build out that plan, you're also going to be creating that messaging and that target. Like put yourself, and my expertise is enterprise. I mean, I've done transactional at HelloSign and other places as well. But, if you focus on putting yourself in the customer's shoes and like, what is this worth to them, and focusing on who you target and putting all of this in your plan, like this is not necessarily the time to target crypto companies or, think about who is going to be, really interested in this. And I think, Ross, you and I were talking about this in our first conversation. And, one of the interesting things about tech, and this is where I think it can really separate people, is, when I was selling, there was no such thing as inbound. In fact, my last company at Pluma was 100% outbound. We had no marketing team. We had no SDR, BDR team. So my AEs were on a 100% outbound initiative. And there aren't too many people in SaaS that know how to outbound. And, a lot of SaaS people, all it takes to be, the top producers to be up next in the rotation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it requires at this point to mark off time on your calendar to be prospecting. And that goes for even sales leaders. I pride myself on, I want to be the best SDR as well as the best leader I can be. So I'm always joking around that I'm going to try to beat my SDR team or account executive team on the number of, the number of accounts I can bring in. And so I feel like it's lead from the front, not from behind. And speaking of planning too, and I think that's something that I do like about a quarter, is like, it's about creating mutual action plans when you start to engage a customer and starting to understand, like, how do they define success? Like different buyers on these teams are going to have different success metrics. The procurement team may want one thing, the engineering team may want something completely different, and then the product team may want something completely different from that. They're all going to have competing projects. They're all going to have competing interests. And if you don't really truly understand how they're going to define success while they're talking with you and engage with you, it's going to be really hard to have sustained success over time. You might get lucky enough and find the light switch in the dark once or twice, but to consistently really create the right kind of approach means mutual action plans. And it always starts with, how does your customer define success?
Yeah, I would double down on that. So my team hears me say this very often, which is qualify out very fast as you can. Qualify out. Don't waste I think Rossi said calories. Don't waste calories on opportunities that aren't real. But also, for your buyer, understand how they're measured. Like, what transformational initiatives are they measured against? And how does your solution meet those? Maybe it doesn't, and that's why you qualify out. But you have to really understand what's in it for them. Why are they taking these meetings, 45, 30, 60-minute meetings? Why are they going to bat for procurement for you? I don't know if you guys have ever bought software yourself for your organization, but it's a process.
A lot of work. It's a lot
of work. And so put yourself in your buyer's shoes, where they have to do their due diligence of, like, why Thrive? Why Natomi versus a competitor? What's the cost of the other solutions? What is this going to get us? What's the impact it's going to have? And so just make sure you have all those questions, or all those answers ready for those questions to help do the homework for your buyer.
Totally. And that kind of goes to like, yeah, how do you make the most of every lead? How do you make the most of every opportunity? Kind of hearing two things. One, which is have a plan, have focus, make sure you're not all over the place because you're going to get nothing done well. Secondly, think about it through the buyer's shoes. And something that I always think about, how can we do more in every deal? It's exactly, Renu, like you said, what is the work that I'm imagining this person doing for other stakeholders or for themselves in the organization? How can I do more of that really freaking well so they have less work to do and they seem great in front of others? Very specifically, a good example maybe after the first or second call, who are they gonna have to talk to? What are they gonna have to do to make this decision? Not just putting together the great follow-up, not just putting together even the executive summary of the 3 reasons why. How can you write up a whole, detailed few paragraphs that they can seem like, wow, they can send this to the rest of their team and be like, this potential partner completely understands how our organization is thinking about this problem. They're teaching us something about the market, and they have exactly what we need to solve this. I think there's always something that, we're talking more and more about right now, to de-risk deals is there's always something more to do on the deal. There's always more value you can provide even outside of your product. And I think that's how sales leaders and reps need to be thinking about things right now. How are you solving problems outside of your product? You want to be a partner at the end of the day that people buy from people that are helping them do their job. I think that's a great mindset to have right now. How do you champion the people that are buying? I think that's like a no-brainer way of moving the needle on converting those leads and opportunities.
Yeah, and if you're genuinely, putting your customers, make your customers awesome, right? Like if you're putting them first and you're really figuring out how you're going to help solve their problems, it's empathetic sales, right? Like, you're meeting a need of theirs, and that goes a long way. I also love something, Jamie, that you had said about being an SDR, and on another, I know there's a lot of leaders here, CEOs and leaders here, like, don't be afraid to do the work. I will never go work, and I've had opportunities in my career to go work for a CEO who's never closed a deal. I will never do that. You want to make sure that you're not afraid, especially, I'm in startup world, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting down on the ground floor and getting in the deals and helping win.
Absolutely. It's like, I love the fact that my CRO just sent the lead over to my team from a board meeting last week. And it's just like, that is so inspiring to my team that our CRO is always, that's just reflection of like, he's also out there outbounding on our behalf, and that's inspiring. And by the way, I suddenly also want to start working out more and eating less calories, based on what everybody's talking about in terms of calorie intake and working out here. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we go to the next topic, I'd love to maybe get one example of a tactical thing that people can do more of on a deal. Because again, yeah, we can talk about this stuff high level and focus. What is one thing that maybe in your career has really, as you've been working on a key deal that you've unlocked, Jamie?
Actually, though, I just think that one thing that comes to mind right now, we're kind of hovering around this topic, is the actual prospecting. And right now, I can't tell you how many emails I'm now getting for people trying to prospect me, and they're generic.
Yes, I've gotten an influx recently, and they're awful. Yeah,
they're awful. And I'm like, it's such an insult to my profession. I'm like, come on, at least look me up, figure something out. And I was at another company that they always phrase like live the brand, meaning go download the app, go try to buy something, go try to use that experience. Maybe get on YouTube and listen to one of the executives talk about something at a conference that you can then tie back to your outreach. Go to their LinkedIn profile, read about where they've been, who you have shared connections with. Like, if you do that and send me like that one thoughtful note, the probability of me actually responding it multiplies by quite a bit, versus if I get a generic note, generic title, like that is absolutely, at the best case, I'm deleting. The worst case, I'm just going to block that. So yeah.
Totally. Always more work to be done. I love that. Yeah.
Completely agree with that. And my CEO, Puneet Mehta, who's incredible, and one of our investors is Jeffrey Katzenberg. And Jeffrey's has said, I know, it's like one of the ways to separate yourself, right, is to exceed expectations by delivering excellence. And, we talk all the time to like our AEs about, would you respond to this email? There's so many, I'm deleting emails all the time. Like, if this isn't something that you would respond to, then you shouldn't send it. Don't bother sending it. And I agree with, I think deals, 90% of deals, particularly in enterprise, can be won or lost in doing your research.
I would just add, be multi-threaded. To the point of everyone sells in the organization, including the head of sales, the CROs, CEO. I have the pleasure of working for Ariana Huffington, who's our CEO. She's our best salesperson. I mean, she goes out and will meet with anybody, and she'll have a conversation with anybody. And, that helps in your progressing your deals forward, because if you have a CEO to CEO connection, and then you have, your buyer and your connection, and you're multi-threaded, especially in this world where, 95% of folks are thinking about, leaving the organization. There's something going on with them, whether they're going to stay or not. You don't want to be in a place where you're only speaking to one person, and then a month later, mid-cycle, they decided to switch jobs. And so I would say really focus on tying the executive relationships and being multi-threaded.
Nice.
So, yeah. Sorry.
By the way, no, I get, the old adage was like, what if somebody gets hit by a bus? Like, is that, will your deal still live on? By the way, did you see Ryan asked a good question too? What if your email is not personalized to you, but is incredibly relevant to the problem your business is facing? I'd be curious to know what the panel's thoughts are on that question.
I'll bite my tongue on this, but until we hear some of the answers, but I have a strong opinion on this. Ladies, what do you think?
I think so. I go about these in two different ways. Sometimes, unfortunately, fortunately, I get so much email that I can't respond to a lot of them. Sometimes I actually do respond and give the SDR some coaching as well to say, hey, I'm not your buyer. This is actually relevant. You probably want to go after, head of marketing or whatever the solution is. And so I think we're all in this together. We're all salespeople. And
a lot of empathy.
Yeah, there's a lot of empathy. When you prospect to the salespeople, I think you get a lot more empathy than when you don't. So I would say, as someone of this tribe, we should all give each other pointers. But as often as I think if it is relevant, I will introduce the right person. But I do think the personalization goes a long way, because if you look at my inbox, I probably get 15 of these a day, that plus or minus. So I can't respond to all of them, nor can I buy 15 different solutions every day.
Yeah, and I agree on that completely too. I think it depends a lot on who it's coming from. Mm-hmm. If an SD, I mean, obviously, if you're sending out a marketing sequence, right, you're going to have to talk more about the problem and less personalized. But the personalization is going to go, especially in this market, a long way. I actually just have been getting to know Ross recently, and he reached out to me via email and said, hey, listen, Elizabeth, I love your background. I love what you've been putting, and it was so bespoke. He said, would you want to participate in this masterclass? I was like, yes, let's hop on a call, and had it been generic, I probably would have just deleted it.
Totally. Outbound every day still.
Yeah.
The personalization can go too is like, look, who are like the mutual investors between companies? It could be just something as an example of that, where maybe the company you're reaching out to is also, your own company had the same investor group. And so either have one of your executives see if like you can get a warm introduction through that route, or if nothing more, just even say, hey, we're from the same, investment portfolio, or maybe you're both Y Combinator companies, which Accord's a Y Combinator company. So things of that nature. So look for commonalities. I think just adding that into that message somehow is, I think, a great start. Do a little bit of the extra research before you send out a note. I think you're just going to, especially nowadays, people are just so busy. And I just want to know that if I do respond, I actually want to know that the person I'm going to be responding to is going to be thoughtful about my time then moving forward. Yeah. And I kind of inherently think that, well, you know what, they actually did take enough time to reach out to me. I feel like if I do respond, I'm not going to just get mass emailed in from into oblivion. They're actually going to then be thoughtful about my time moving forward. And so that's what I'm thinking anyway.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think a really good personalization email that I got, I want to say earlier this week, maybe it was Friday, was, it was a solution that we used at my previous organization, Slack. And I actually didn't use it because I had left Slack by that point, but in the email, they said, hey, we started working with Slack a year ago and we've worked with XYZ leader over there. You maybe, looks like you're connected with them on LinkedIn. Would love to tell you about the impact that we made there automatically. So that one just showed that they did their research and they know that the impact that Slack has. I can easily go back to those folks that they know I'm connected to on LinkedIn to get the back channel reference. And so it's just really tied they know what their impact is for the solution. They know who I am. They know, and they're confident that their solution has a positive impact. So I did respond to that one, and probably will be setting up a call maybe later this week, I want to say.
Nice. By the way, and one other point that I think any sales leaders that are listening, we actually owe it to ourselves and to be mindful of what metrics we're really asking for on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Yeah. Because if you ask for 100 of something, you'll get 100 of something. Is that 100 of something really going to drive the results? And I've just been in organizations where you find out the SDR needs to do a ridiculous amount of phone calls, emails, and how can they be personalized when these metrics are in place? So I think it's a good reminder if you're a sales leader out there too, of continue to re-examine what you're asking everybody to do right now. Because the good people are going to give you whatever that number is. Nobody wants to get on that bad list, but is that metric that you're trying to drive to, does that actually drive the results? Or is that just an exercise in futility? And so just be thoughtful of that.
I completely agree on that one. I literally have oftentimes been, almost always been on the leaderboard, even when I was an IC, and probably the bottom when it comes to activity. And again,
always, every single time. This goes for, I think, every single top 10% of reps or sales leaders. I completely agree.
Yeah. And again, it's that bespoke messaging, making sure, and that question again, what does good personalization look like? I mean, we are at Natomi, we're a next generation automation for customer experience. We're omni-channel, without getting into sales pitch for you guys, but first generation chatbots are hurting customer experience. And, one of the things that I love about it, we're all consumers. Mm-hmm. We've all been so frustrated. You're ordering food delivery and, did you get your food? No, it was late, and you want to throw your phone, you're in all caps, right? So, I encourage my team, go look at their website. What are they doing? So you can reach out and say, hey, if you're calling in airlines, you have an 8-hour wait time right now. We could help you with that, but you don't know that unless you go and you do the research and personalize it to that customer.
Totally. Well, just to switch gears off this, we have a great question here in the Q&A. My quick thoughts: people buy from people. I've always leaned very heavily into the emotional side of sales versus, yes, you have to understand their business problems, all this stuff. You have to be an MBA and totally understand, like everyone's been saying, totally understand the impact. But the way to generate energy, to me, there's generating energy. So when you're talking about outbound, when you're talking about starting new conversations with people, it's about the personal connection. That's why I find I respond far more to people that are talking about me, and then making a business decision. It's about the ROI. So there's ebbs and flows in relationships. When you're trying to build that energy, you're trying to create conversations, then it's about capturing that energy and this is how it's going to help you do a great job, right? You're not going to just become best friends and they're going to buy from you. That's never going to happen. But if you can build the energy and the personal connections and the opportunity to have that conversation, diving in with the real business, that's how I would think about maybe outbound, or even multi-threading and starting new conversations. What's that investor connection? Who's that mutual friend? Who's that thing? And then build the real rapport off of, your business insights for the company. But that's just one person's opinion. How do you think about
building rapport? By the way, real quick jump in is I think a lot of us, we have products that, require demos and other things. I always preach the idea too of having the calls between the calls, meaning once you start to build a rapport, maybe you have the cell phone number as well, or get the number of the person that is your champion. Do other things like grab a cell phone call. Maybe you arrange where, hey, speaking of calories and exercise, why don't we do a walk and talk wherever you're based from, wherever I'm based from. I'm going to jump on my cell phone. Why don't we each go on a walk wherever we are, and let's just catch up. And I mean, a lot of times, like, my wife and I are about to go to Italy for our 15th anniversary. I happen to be on with one of my salespeople on a call where turns out this guy just got back from Italy. He was all too excited to talk about his experience at Florence. And like, we ended up spending 20 minutes on Florence. And I think in this day and age of the pandemic and everybody's kind of like isolated, having just a good call where you connect with human to human, it doesn't always have to be about work. It can be, but just getting to know people between these demos and these big formalized calls, I think goes a long way as well. But be authentic about it, obviously. And, you're right. It's you aren't their best friend. Be mindful of that. But being thoughtful and curious and wanting to be a thoughtful human about things goes a long way.
Totally. Well, sorry, switch gears for the last few minutes here. I love this question. How do you go about navigating additional procurement requirements like budget limits that might emerge in, mid deal during the downturn? So I think we're already seeing this, which is decision makers who used to be able to also be signers are no longer signers. They can help make the recommendation and they're deciding on who the right partner is, but it has to go to 1 to 2 more people. So I'd be curious to get this group's thoughts on how they think about that, and maybe some tips and tricks of, what they would do to make sure you're getting that next level ahead of time, because you don't want the first time they're hearing about it be from someone else. So Renu, curious to maybe kick things off with your thoughts.
Obviously, yes, the buying process has changed. So the first obvious thing is make sure you understand the buying process, but sometimes the buyer now no longer knows or says, I have to now include, this new executive, blah, blah, blah. And so really understanding from their perspective what they think the buying process is, but also leading the witness. So to say, I worked with another organization of your size, and I know that we're going to have to go through a security review. Here's our 2-pager security package that can hopefully get us ahead of it. So trying to be 10 steps ahead of them, look around the corners.
Yeah.
Do you need an ROI? Do you need a business case? We absolutely can do that for you. We never send out blind proposals at our organization. We always package them with an ROI, with a security overview. So we integrate into Slack and Teams, and we know that somebody in the IT is going to have questions about privacy and whatever else. And so we know 90% of the questions that we're going to anticipate. Let's get ahead of those. And then the ROI obviously is huge for most organizations right now to say, what impact is this going to have on my org? What's the benefits we're going to see in 3 months, 12 months, whatever, everyone tries doing multi-year deals. So in 3 years, where are we going to be? So just dragging ahead of it. I would say we're not wizards. Sometimes you just can't predict what's going to happen, right, in the procurement cycle, because something has changed. Someone has left, someone has COVID, whatever the situation is, which we saw a lot of COVID during the end of our last fiscal year. Thankfully everyone was okay in the end, but you just have to be nimble and try getting ahead of as much as you can.
Totally. Yeah. I love the idea of what I've called next steps. How do you make sure you're forecasting that? And I think some people talk about it in terms of owning the deal. It's really like guiding the buyer, right? Like, how are you helping them? I've now been on the other side of it. And you're left there being like, what's going to happen next? When someone's like, okay, so this is this call. If this stuff aligns, then this is the next thing. And this is the next. I'm like, that's so helpful. Now I can have the right conversations internally, and it feels so much easier. So yeah, that's a great, and yeah, if you have to go to the next level and asking them the question, hey, what do you think? This is what I see. They're going to appreciate that. I think a lot of, especially more junior sales folks, lack the confidence in asking the process based. They're very comfortable with the product. They're very comfortable maybe with the disco. But when it comes to asking questions and for information about the specific company, like, who are you already looking at? Where are you at in the buying process? When would you ideally do that? I think most sales reps lack that. I don't know where it comes from, but lack that, I guess, confidence to ask those questions.
It's completely right. Where the more junior the sales folks are, the less questions they want to ask, because they don't want they almost like don't want to qualify the opportunity out. And so I have to remind my team,
Yes.
no matter what level you're at, you've earned the right. If you've earned 45 minutes with this buyer, with this prospect, you've earned the right to ask questions. But they've given you that unsaid permission to come with your opinion, with your questions. And so you do have to remind them from time to time that they can absolutely ask the questions that are necessary.
Another thing I would just add to the question is get creative as leaders in the contracting. You know, I just actually literally right before this call had a conversation far along proposal conversation with a prospect who is a 7-figure opportunity for us, and they've been hit hard and they need us, and they've lost people, and you know they need our solution. And he's like, we want this very badly, but we can't pay this whole thing up front. I'm like, okay, so we'll get creative on our payment terms, and we will, you know, we know that we can deliver ROI right out of the gate. And it's like, okay, so we'll give you a 30-day opt-out, and, you know, so you're comfortable, and we can pay over, you know, quarterly. And, you know, you've got to structure your contracts a little bit, maybe differently than you normally would.
Yeah, the less upfront thing is something that we're seeing and leaning into. We want to be great partners. We want to be aware of the environment that we're in, and we want to grow together. And it's not just about maximizing. I'm seeing a lot of lost deals from other people talking to other sales leaders and reps, and you got to really quickly react to that. That totally changed for us. We almost did 100% of our business in Q1 annual upfront. You know, now we're having conversations. Okay, we want to be a partner. That means a give get. We are going to be as invested, whether you pay us the 10, 20K up front, or you give us $2,000 now, and we are aligned and we trust that we're going to still work together. Could we do 2 years? Could we do 18 months instead? Because we're going to be there with you. And you got to get very creative and show people yeah, exactly. I love that approach to things, Elizabeth. And Jamie, you're about to jump in there too.
Oh yeah, and maybe it's a little bit off topic, but it's relevant where we're perhaps getting into recession, but we are literally just leaving the opposite of this pendulum, which is like the hottest job market ever seen. And what that means is there might be a good chance that the person you're talking to is relatively new to the company they're at right now. They may not actually even know the process of buying something. So it's okay to just say, hey, what is the process? Take me through the buying process from your end in a way that you're curious, you're not questioning them, but rather this will allow you to see, do they really know? Like, who else should we be talking to as part of this deal cycle? What other teams will own this? And the other thing is procurement people are people too. So like, don't be afraid to get them involved earlier than later. I think showing that department the proper respect ultimately will help out. And I think a lot of us want to wait until the end for that. And you do that, and like the procurement people know that. And like, who are they going to want to help out in terms of getting, if there's 2 deals to try to get in at the end of the quarter, one team has been talking to you since near the beginning. The other one you just met yesterday in an email. Like, who are you going to want to give your time to and your energy to? And again, it gets back to being thoughtful. Multi-threaded is what I heard earlier from Renu. It's like, these are things you have to really be mindful of and thoughtful about.
Totally. One thing that popped to my mind when you were sharing that around getting folks involved later, or potentially waiting or doing it earlier, I think something that we've been coaching our team on, especially selling to salespeople, I think they really appreciate, just being brutally honest. Like, hey, if we're having this conversation now, and this usually only takes, you know, a week or 10 days, and we have 3 weeks left to the end of the month, like, does this make sense to you? Like, just ask. It's not you're not trying to get it done if it doesn't. Ask the question. Maybe it does, and they waited another week and they didn't need to at all. It makes no difference for them. I think having that, like you said, that honesty and approaching everyone like they're real people is a total game changer for the types of conversations that you're able to have. And I think that's something that, you know, trying to unlock both through coaching as well as something through Accord, right? Is like, this is how we're going to work together. Does this make sense for you? These are this is usually how it works. You know, every company is a bit different. Who needs to be involved, and trying to have those conversations, you know, either you call it like losing the deal up front or qualifying it out or all those things, I think is this weird counterintuitive thing that you learn once you've won and lost a bunch of deals and you see those patterns. And I think where you kind of need to move to in this type of market. But we have 2 more minutes. Curious to hear if there's any key kind of tips or tricks or things that this group wants to leave folks thinking about going into these next, whatever the future holds. No
I would say
idea, but
Chris
yeah.
has a really good question. I'll just end on
Okay,
his
yeah.
question from my
Awesome.
end. How do you leverage other departments for an opportunity? At MessageBird, I know we want to talk to the product team, the engineering team, and then whatever ultimate department that's going to use us. You kind of know that ahead of time with the patterns. And so the earlier you can start to ask people in a sales cycle, like, hey, who is your head of engineering, or who on the engineering team should we start to bring in? Or do the research yourself. Hey, I noticed your CTO is this person. Like, at what point do you think we should maybe get that person involved? The earlier you do that, the better. The longer you wait, the more awkward that request is going to be.
Yeah, when you run into blockers, then you're asking for someone, very, very awkward. Totally.
I would say the last thing is just be bold. I mean, we're salespeople. We know we're hopefully working for our organizations because we believe in the mission. We believe the impact they can have. So that comes across when you're speaking to somebody and they're selling you something. They're talking to you about, what their organization can do for yours. Like, be bold and make the asks. And the worst you're going to get is a no. But if you're going to continue not to ask the question, even worse thing's going to happen is you're going to be stringing along for 6 months, not getting the no that you could have gotten 6 months ago. So
be bold. I love that. That's a great parting words. And Elizabeth.
My last leaving part would be challenges. Just remember, challenges make you better, right? Challenges make you better. It's not our wins and our successes that make us grow. It's our challenges. And that's, if you lean into that and own that, this could be a great time to level up. And you've got probably already seen content out there that some of the top companies in tech came out of the 07, 08 meltdown. So this can
They had to be efficient. They were forced to start there. This is the conversation you just got out with that team. It's just like, hey, yes, there's some days this is more challenging and you get punched in the face and you lose some deals that you thought you should win and all this stuff. But overall, if you're able to build a winning sales motion, product, all these things in what could be a much tougher market, imagine what you're going to be able to do if you take that culture and approach to even a 10% better, 20% better market. And it's exactly what had happened in the last recession. And I think you're going to see people get separated right now. And I think it comes down to what you just shared, which is the mental model around it. Can you approach this as an exciting challenge to up level and to get to that next, opportunity? Or is it too much? And you're like, I can only operate in this easier world. I'm not going to be thinking about different things. I'm not going to be creative and bold. So that's something that I'm personally, it's nerve wracking, but it is exciting. And hopefully everyone can kind of lean into that.
100%.
Awesome.
Thanks for having
I
us.
really appreciate everyone joining, especially these panelists. I'm sure you got deals to get back to. I'm sure I got 3 more emails to send on behalf of my team and some calls to make. I'm sure you all have the same. So really appreciate you taking the time. We're going to do something similar next week if folks are interested around the focus on NRR going into this. How do you make sure you're not just closing these deals, but you're taking care of your current customers and set them up for success? But again, I have a lot to think about after this session. So appreciate everyone's time.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.